Hello everyone, today I'm going to do a video on how to balance your 112 scale main chassis. Um, you probably have noticed that there's kind of a theme going on here with setting up your RC vehicles, whatever RC car it might be. You have to balance the car statically left and right, and so usually you use your electronics to get this all done and sorted out with, but you might also have to use some lead weight to help offset the left side or the right side, depending on what layout you're running on with your car. So right now I'm running a 112 scale and I need to balance the chassis out. You'll probably notice there's a couple of things missing. I'm actually missing the rear pod assembly and the motor. I usually do this with my 112 scales because I want to just focus on balancing the main chassis itself. And I just want to eliminate any possibilities that the pod by itself might cause a problem with the balance of the main chassis itself, and also eliminating the motor from the situation as well is important because this is the heaviest component of the 112 scale vehicle. And so this can, dramatically affect the main chassis balance, which in theory, the pod and the motor are only connected by the pivot ball itself. And so really this shouldn't be factored in when you're balancing the main chassis. What you want to do, if some people do this, some people will balance the pod independently to the main chassis, which is perfectly fine. But you want to balance, if you decide to balance the pod, you do want to balance the pod independently and the main chassis independently from each other. Okay, so yeah, I would look at doing both separately. I actually don't balance the rear pod. I just leave it as is. But you could do as you want, but most of the guys tend to just leave the pod as is. All right, so let's just get to it here. So I have everything installed in, on my main chassis. I have my speed control, receiver, power cap, my battery, and my servo. Ideally, you want to kind of keep the electronics, especially the receiver and the power cap, together on one side of the chassis because the speed control out of most of the electronics here is the heaviest component out of this electronics group. So usually the speed control stays on one side of the chassis by itself, and then you try to use, the power cap and the receiver and the servo here to offset this weight from the speed control. Now the battery here, I also posted a video about the LiPo battery structure. And as you can see here, I've kept the terminal side of the battery on the side of the speed control because this side here will be relatively lighter than this side here. It's just the way that the construction of the LiPo is. So what I've done is I've just kept the terminal side on the speed control side because it's slightly lighter. You'll also notice the wire has been I've tried to simulate the wires, the wire positions as if they're connected to the motor. So the route that they're taking right now is relatively the same as if they were to be connected to the motor. So also another thing to keep in mind is that these wires do play a small role in the balance of the car. And that's important to make sure how the wires are positioned when you're balancing the main chassis. These wires here, I wouldn't worry about because they're very light and I don't think they will affect anything. So what you want to do is take a nice flat board, flat surface, take your spirit level it out, which it is. Take your pins, slide them underneath. If I can find it here. All right, there we go. Put it underneath, like so. Let's see what we got. So right now it is looking like it is heavier on the electronic side. So what you can do is you can do one of two things. You can either add lead weight to this side here, or you can also use your transponder, which is actually in my touring car, but you can just place the transponder there. And what you're doing there is you're actually utilizing another electronic part without having to add lead weight. Ideally, you don't really want to add lead weight, because if you add lead weight, you might make the car too heavy. And if the case may be that, you know, your car is quite light, then go ahead and add some lead weight. But ideally, you want to try to keep the car lead weight free, because usually the car is heavy as it is, and you want to try to use it as less as possible. Lead weights, that is. So actually, I didn't necessarily need the lead weight. I found out that just in the video here, I just moved the battery slightly and repositioned it, and it actually got everything all balanced out nice and neatly. So there you go. That's how I balance the main chassis. It's pretty straightforward, and then all you have to do is reconnect the links, reconnect the pod, and you're good to go. Now, if you do decide to balance your rear pod assembly, if you do decide to do this, now this guy only has one hole on this side here, so you could probably drill a hole here if you'd like to balance the rear pod. But the thing that I just want to point out is each manufacturer's motor design is slightly different from each other, and so you'll have different balance structure of the motor. And so this motor here might have a very heavy front end, so the pod might tilt this way. And say that, you know, if you want to switch out to this motor, the weight could be heavy on this side. So you have to keep that in mind when you are going to balance the rear pod of your vehicle. But like I said earlier, you don't have to do it. You can if you want, but 90% of the time, a lot of people don't. So I would just balance the main chassis, leave the rear pod. Once you're all finished, you should be good to go. Just tweak your side screws and you're good to go. I hope this was of help. If you have any questions, please leave a message.